I wanted to apologize. Elaine McManus was scheduled to come here to speak with you. She is the branch chief that oversees community services. That is the umbrella for the assisted living residence program as well as the home care. She got waylaid. We were sequestered in a meeting all day yesterday. We got nothing done. So she asked that I come, so I hope that you'll accept her apologies.
Can't really hear.
Can't hear. Okay. I think I'm going to get turned up. All right, testing, testing. Testing, testing. Is that better? Keep going up, keep going up. How's that? How's that? Is that better? Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so you all know that we are in the throes of regulation revision. Thank God this is coming to an end. We've been doing it for 3 years, formally for 2 years. We're pretty fried. You know, we keep on having to tell everybody, okay, just hang in there, we got a few more meetings, we're going to get through this. It's been such a long process because every regulation that we have is being touched. And the burden that we're having is that we're constantly reminded by the governor's office and by our division director that these regulations must stand and they must be in place and they must be suitable for the next 10 or 15 years. If any of you all want to be in my shoes, be my guest, because that is a very daunting task, and it's one that keeps me up at night because we want to make sure that we do, that we do this right, and we are very considerate and thoughtful about whatever assisted living is going to look like in 15 years. So we've been doing a lot of research. We've been talking to other states. We've been reaching out to all of you and different people within the community, including providers and family members, and getting their opinions of the regs, and everyone has a different perspective. It's been pretty interesting. As you know, if you attend the assisted living advisory meetings, every once in a while we'll have family members that come, and then we're going to have to hear about all their complaints for the last 3 months and what happened to them, you know, some pretty bad outcomes sometimes, and so we have to listen to them as well on their feedback about what they like and don't like about assisted living. We have residents also that will call and they will tell us their opinion of the regulations, and so they want to know what we're doing in the future. So it's been a huge task. I certainly hope that we come up with a set of rules and regulations that, number one, capture what's already going on in assisted living, because we all know that you're doing some things in assisted living that's not captured within the regulations, and also will be a good format for capturing what could be. Assisted living in this state has really evolved. For those of you that have been around a long time, like Heidi and myself, I mean, assisted living was a social model, and people still drove their cars, and nobody had a walker, and, you know, gosh darn it, there's not one cane in the whole dining room. And you know what? That was like 20 years ago. And so it has evolved. And because of the lack of structure and framework within our regulations, things have just blown up. We don't have a certificate of need in this state, so anybody can open one on any corner. And people have kind of done what they wanted to do, and that's fine within our current reg statute or framework, which does not really give a lot of guidance and structure. So we need to kind of take a step back, number one, capture what's already happening, and then go forward. So for this presentation, I would like to ask, because there's a couple ways we can do it. You can ask me pointed questions about the regulations, the draft regulations, or we can go through them from front to back. I just want to judge this for what you want, and I want to present the way that you want it. So does anybody have thoughts about how you want this rest of this time to go?
How about significance and material changes from the old iteration?
Well, that's pretty much everything.
Well, some of it we've made changes, happy to glad is what I call it, but then we've also made some very remarkable changes to the way that we've made our interpretations in terms of the way that I see it is that we've affected food service, activities, and nursing and admissions.
I think, well, whoops, I'm off now. Oh, hold on. Oh, I'm back now. Okay. I really think every section of the regs has changed. And I think my opinion is they've changed substantially. And so, I mean, every time somebody asks me, what do you think is the most important things that have changed, I kind of have to pause for a minute because I guess the two things that come to my mind, number one, is limited nursing. So I think that's the most drastic change that we have. The second change I think that's drastic in my eyes is the role of administrator. So those two things to me are probably the biggest. The third would be medication administration. So if I had to tell you what I thought, that would be my opinion. So if you want me to start talking about limited nursing, I can do that. And so what I'll say about limited nursing is that we are, and I think we've had 2 or 3 meetings with the Assisted Living Advisory Committee meeting, and we are getting ready for our final meeting, hopefully to talk about limited nursing one last time, because it's just taken a lot of back and forth, a lot of revision, a lot of thought, and it's taken more time than what we thought. But I'll tell you the concepts, because the regulations are in draft. They haven't been formally blessed by the committee, so I don't want to talk about them concretely because we're still in the concept stage. So what the concept is, in assisted living, we have current regulations. We have very vague rules that pertain to nursing. So if you read them, as I have, and you've read them, you're like, what does that mean? You know what? No one really knows, because whoever wrote them, I don't know what they were thinking, but I want to find them and I want to pinch them because they make no sense. And so it talks about, assisted living facilities cannot provide, 24-hour nursing services, blah, and that's it. And so then you're like, well, what does that mean? So we've been challenged as a department, like, what does that mean? And we don't have a good answer. So what's happened in assisted living is that because we don't have that framework, people are actually doing limited nursing in assisted living. So you might have a nurse in a facility that are giving insulin injections. That's limited nursing. You might have staff that are doing skilled nursing tasks, which is nursing. And so we've allowed that because we don't have structure in the regs to capture that. So the biggest thing I think that's going to happen for you all is to, number one, recognize, I better not walk around, is to recognize that what is my staff doing? Does it cross the line between personal care worker, which is our new buzzword for a person who is not skilled? Personal care worker is what we're going to be calling our general staff. Are they doing skilled nursing tasks? So, for example, if a resident cannot assist in a transfer, that transfer is a skilled transfer. So, what we've done is we've looked at the regulations for home care, because home care has 2 sets. They have one for non-medical and they have one for medical. So we've taken the regulations because they've already been vetted through DORA and other agencies to say what is skilled and what is not skilled. So we've used that going into our regulations to give you framework on this is a non-skilled task and this is a skilled. So in preparation for what's to be, I would suggest that you look at what you're doing in your facility and making decisions if it's skilled or non-skilled based upon what we have in draft. Because if you're doing skilled tasks, then you're going to be a licensed, well, it's not licensed, it'll be just it's almost like having a secured environment within your facility. You'll be authorized to do limited nursing. And limited nursing is something that you're going to disclose to us on your application process that this is something that you indeed do. So you need to have a kind of a thoughtful conversation within your facility, with your staff, with your owners, and so forth to decide, hey, do I want to continue to do limited nursing or do I not? Like, what line do I want to be on? And if you want to be on the line where you're going to be doing limited nursing, there's some things that you must think about putting in place. Number one, those limited nursing tasks have to be done by a licensed person. We won't allow personal care workers to do those anymore. Question?
Licensed person meaning nurse?
CNA or nurse. So personal care workers are not licensed, so they cannot do skilled tasks. Question?
Did you say about a 2-person assist? That would be considered a skilled task?
Yes. Yes. A skilled, if you have a person that requires 2 persons to transfer, that is going to be a skilled nursing task. So I want you to think about what you're currently doing, and you're going to have to work towards deciding if you're going to be over here or if you're going to be over here. So we don't care what you decide, as long as if you decide, then you have to put things in place. Now, if you decide that you want to do limited nursing, then that's fine. You have to have CNAs that do that care, and you have to have a nurse oversight. So a CNA cannot work as a CNA without a nurse to supervise. So we're working on those pieces. We're working on regulations that talk about that supervisory nurse and what their role is. In the beginning, we talked about a medical director, and we nixed that. That didn't make sense. So now we're working on some lesser type of licensed staff that can do that position and that oversight. So that being said, we're trying to educate people, like when they call, about what's coming. We know the concept is there. People agree on the concept. We just haven't hammered out all the verbiage because it's very, very complicated. Every time we turn the corner, it's like something new. Like, for example, our skilled nursing program within the health department, we talk with them extensively about, tell us about long-term care. When does it become skilled nursing? And there's a window within long-term care. And so they describe a 2-hour window where if a person is receiving skilled nursing services for 2 hours or more a day, they should be a nursing home resident. So we're trying to capture within our regulations for you, when does it become too much nursing for that person to remain in an assisted living versus a nursing home? Because right now, we don't have that. And so, and it would be dependent upon the nursing services that you provide as a facility, not what comes in through hospice or home care. We don't count that. That's an external agency. It's what you decide that you want to provide. Now, the other stumbling block that we've come across that we're just working through, and again, we're hammering out some of these details, is that residents, if a facility discloses that, hey, I'm a limited nursing facility, we can provide limited nursing here, but residents still have the opportunity to seek those services through home care or hospice. So we don't want to bump into the resident's choice. But we want you to disclose that, hey, this is a service we can provide, but we still want to honor that residents have choices. And it's your responsibility, it's your licensed facility, so it's your responsibility to ensure the coordination of care between yourself and those outside agencies. So we're still hammering that out as well. On the lower level of this, there's all the care planning that comes into play. So if I'm doing limited nursing, I have to have a section of my care plan that describes what limited nursing services I'm providing and how I'm meeting the residents' needs. And then you also have to make sure your care plan identifies external services coming in. And then you have to also identify what your personal care workers and your dietary staff and your activity staff are doing for that resident. So it's going to be a much more broader, comprehensive assessment. So that's the basis. So I want to ask you what your questions are, because I know I have many every day. So don't be afraid.
So do the limited nursing designation, is that for the license, or is that getting care plan based? And what policies are
For the license or care plan based. I'm not sure I understand the question.
Because there was some discussion about a different license for limited nursing, or is that going to be policy?
So we're still discussing that. We're trying to decide if you disclose yourself to be a facility that provides limited nursing, is that something that we would do like a secured environment? There would be an extra cost for licensure, especially if you're new and you're starting out, or if you decide to add that, would that be a special cost that we would add on top of your licensure cost or annual renewal? We're talking about that because we know that if we were going to go out to do your inspection and you have limited nursing, we're going to have to send probably more people out to do your inspection because it's a higher level of care. So that's a concept. We haven't decided on anything yet, but we've certainly talked about it. Questions?
If as a community you are offering the limited nursing, does that mean that all your staff need to be CNA, or just the staff that is doing the actual skilled task?
Just the staff that are doing the actual skilled work. So you can have, if I was at a limited nursing facility, I would have some staff in my staff that are CNAs, and I would also have personal care workers. And so, it's going to be a balancing game between, okay, now I have 5 people on limited nursing, and I've got 70 that are not. So now these CNAs, they can be pulled away to do personal care worker tasks, and that's fine. You can pull them away to do regular tasks. So, and they don't need the supervision of a nurse to do personal care worker tasks. So it's going to be a balancing act because people change and people move and people die, on how to balance out your staffing. So I guess like a question I have, because I've been thinking about it a lot, how many people here would be interested in being and doing limited nursing? Okay, quite a few. Great, okay, great, so I've got a good audience. And it's good for all of you people that are thinking, no, I don't want to do it, so you know where the line is, right? That's good too. Because if we come into your facility and like you're doing limited nursing and you know, and you haven't disclosed it, well, okay, that's not good, but you're doing it. But if everything is in place, that's better. But if you're doing it and you don't have these things in place, that's not going to be good. Mm-hmm.
How long are communities going to have to implement these things once the regulations come out?
You know, I'm going to advocate for as long. Oh, sure. Yeah. She asked, I'm sorry. She asked, like, how long will it be, like when the regs pass, that we're going to start surveying facilities for this? That's a good question. And so I always advocate for as long as possible. We want to give you as long as possible to get these regulations under your belt and to be ready for us to survey. In the past, we've given like 6 months. And we also will be going out as a department and doing trainings. So similar to the QMP, although the Educational and Technical Assistance Branch did the QMP training, but our team will be doing the training on the new regs. Our team has to learn them the same way that you all have to learn them. So the documents that I'm preparing for our assisted living residents team to be able to survey for all this new stuff will be shared with you at the same time. So I might as well do it all together, right? So that's my plan. Whatever we share with our staff, we will share a version of that with you so that you have that in hand. Now, I can't control who's going to come up from survey in the summer of 2018. I can run numbers and I can have a guess, but wherever you guys are in the survey process, we're trying to survey the ACFs once every 3 years. The private pay facilities have been backed up. We don't have enough staff to survey them, and so they're being pushed back year after year because we don't have the staff. So I can't really predict the ALR workload, but I can tell you the ACFs will stay on that one time every 3 year survey cycle unless we have a complaint. Okay. Mm-hmm.
On the 2-hour nurse, on the two.
Whoop.
Okay.
There you go. No? No?
I can talk about
Okay.
On the 2-hour or more.
Is that the right one?
On the 2-hour or more nursing home, you know, maybe qualifier per day of skills that are needed, is there going to be very clear differentiators as to what that will look like? Because depending on residents, they could want you in your room, you know, 10 times a day. And so is there going to be very strict guidelines as to what that will look like in regards to the 2-hour?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that question has been brought up a lot, and I'm glad that you asked it. So in our discussions internally about this 2-hour window, we're not going to say, okay, you're sitting on the bed, you're talking to a resident after you change the catheter. So we're going to consider all the time that you talk to the resident as skilled nursing in that 2-hour window. No, we're not going to do it. It's hands-on care. So, and so, like, let's say, for example, this is another question that come up that we're working out, because this happens. I mean, this is what happens when you work with people, as we all do, is that Mrs. Jones gets limited nursing every day. She has a nurse that comes in, checks on a catheter site. She might have a CNA come in that gives PRN medication, because that's another change that we're looking to make. So we're adding up that time. If it comes out to 2 hours and 10 minutes, are we going to cite a facility? No. We're not going to get that picky. If it's way overboard, yes. Now, people get sick. So if you have somebody on limited nursing and they get sick, you know, we just want to see what you're doing next. Does that person need additional care because you've already exceeded your hours? Are you going to get home care in? Are you going to get hospice in? Is this person going to be transferred out for a while? We're going to measure you by the response once somebody goes over a certain amount of time, which we dictate within our regulations. So that is the concept. We haven't settled on the 2 hours, on the acute chronic care within 14 days. We've been battering those back and forth. And if you've been listening, we've had a lot of conversation. We're still in the throes of that.
I have a question.
Oh.
You did just mention, potentially even mention CNAs passing medication.
I knew you were going to ask.
Stay over there.
I knew you were going to ask that. Okay, so the question was about PRN medication. So, how many meetings ago was it? Maybe 3 or 4. We were talking about medication administration. So, PRN medication administration has been a bone of contention within the department for many years. And so we have allowed QMAPs to do way above and beyond what our other skilled programs have allowed QMAPs to do. And my nurses at the health department, I think they shake every time we talk about this. I just get, I'm like, I know, calm down, calm down. And why did this happen? How did this happen? I don't know, I don't know. So, so what I'll tell you is that we've had some heated conversations internally. We've also had conversations with providers, residents, family members, and the whole bit about assessment and evaluation is really what's driving this decision. So the decision has been made that we will not allow QMAPs to give PRN medications unless a resident can request it. And so, because we've had too many occasions where people are being chemically restrained, so-and-so gave somebody something because they had arm pain and it turned out to be a heart attack. Somebody gave somebody a PRN medication and it wasn't for this because the person had a bowel obstruction. So there's many, many bad consequences when somebody that's not skilled makes an assessment on when to give a PRN when the resident can't request. So now there's a lot of facilities out there that have told me, Dee, you know what, we just don't, in our secured environment, we don't accept PRN orders. We don't have a nurse, and that's just what we do. And so they either get medication scheduled, and the physician is on top of working with the facility about when to stop those, but they don't go into PRNs because the residents can't request, and it's too dangerous for QMAPs to make that evaluation and assessment. Now, I know what y'all been doing because you've all been doing it for years, and I did it when I ran an assisted living facility. I got the physician to write, hey, give this when the resident is like saying this, or when they're exhibiting this, and that's dangerous too. That's very dangerous. So it's a little better, but it's still dangerous. So because our other groups within our licensed facilities in the health department don't allow that, we aren't going to allow it. Now, here's how you can get around it. So the CNA, MAA. So if you have a CNA who has the medication administration certificate to be a CNA to give meds, that CNA can give PRN medications under the direction of the supervising nurse. So if that's something that you guys want to do, if you want to be able to give PRN medications, that's an avenue that you can take. I know I'm not very popular right now, and I'm sorry.
Other questions?
Oops, there's one.
So what if the family is at the house and POA says, when's the last time my dad could, whatever, and we tell them and they say, we want to give them the Senate.
Mm-hmm. So what I'll say to that is that becomes dangerous. And so if they're requesting it, you call the doctor, send me a stat order. Let the doctor order it. The doctor will order it and say, please give center right now, call back in 4 hours if not resolved.
But that doesn't happen. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. That doesn't happen. The doctor doesn't get back to you right away. It takes half a day. The family's like, I'm the POA. You know what I mean? I'm just.
Well, okay, so one thing is that you should never give a medication on a PRN basis, first of all, at the direction of a family member. You should never.
I know, but I'm just being realistic that
Yeah, I know.
We run into.
I understand that, and I've pitched your point to people at the health department. I've tried to advocate for what we've been doing in assisted living, and I feel like I'm on the fence because I've seen the dangers, and then I've seen the reality of running a facility, and it's just too dangerous. And so we've had too many instances where QMAPs have just stepped outside. And it's become very, very problematic. I had a question a couple days ago where someone said, can my QMAP give this PRN morphine? It's a PRN. The resident is nonverbal. And there was just too many bad things about it. There's no nurse. You can't get a hold of the hospice nurse. It's so bad. And actually, we've had 2 or 3 morphine overdoses for PRN morphine. We've had 2 deaths.
So in a situation like that, I mean, what is protocol? Do you just call 911 then? I mean, in an event where if you see a particular resident, I'm sorry, my name is Vlad, I'm new to all this, so I'm from the Northwest, so I compare completely 2 different sets of regulations. In the event, we can give PRNs over there, as long as we're delegated, as long as we have an order for it, a doctor's order. My question would be in the event that our staff can't give PRNs here, right? In the event that she just mentioned, you call 911 there, if a person's nonverbal, can't communicate, obviously there's something wrong with that person. You can't give PRNs, it's 911.
It would be 911. Unless they're under hospice or, you call hospice first. If they don't respond, you don't wait. So, again, it's removing the license assessment and evaluation out of QMAP. And we didn't have that very distinct at all within Chapter 24 or Chapter 7. And we need to keep that line. So, I was thinking, if I ran my own facility, I certainly would consider, for a group of residents that really needed it, having a CNA, MMA, having a nurse. So I could give PRN meds under that supervision of a nurse. So that's an avenue. Now, families call me, because I got a couple calls in the last couple weeks. They don't like our current regulation about PRN psychotropics. And so, I get the very same thing that you got. Well, I'm the medical director power of attorney. They should be listening to me. They should do whatever I say. I'm like, no, not if it violates regulations. I should be permitted to tell them to put a seatbelt on my mom. No. I should be permitted to tell them when to medicate my mother. No. I got into a really intense conversation, and she's going to show up at ALAC meetings, I guarantee you. She's pretty angry because she doesn't like our regulations. And I tried to explain the difference between licensed and unlicensed staff and what the areas of responsibility are, as well as what the tasks that they legally can and cannot do. It's gotten too wild and woolly, I'll tell you that. I could sit up here for the next 3 hours and tell you all the cases where somebody gave a PRN and they shouldn't have given it. They didn't have the ability to assess or evaluate. We had a very, very bad outcome.
More questions?
First, I have 2 questions.
Oops.
Coming.
He's coming.
Back up to
Okay. In my box.
Okay. So my first question was, am I missing something? You were saying CNA can have infusions? I've never, no, they can't?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I just come from a world where it's always been a human.
Yeah, in this state we have a relatively new program where CNAs can go take a course for CNAs. They can become certified to give medications.
Is it a med tech?
They don't call it a med tech. It's like medication administration aid, but it's CNA, medication administration aid. So it's a special certification. And so the training there's it's different than what we have in our QMAP training.
It's like an 8-week course.
8-week course.
So we did it when we were
Nice.
CNA. It was like an 8-week course, so we did clinicals. So it's a lot more in depth than QMAP.
It's a lot more in depth. It's an 8-week course. It's a lot more in depth. We feel better as a department allowing those CNA MAs to give those medications under the supervision of a nurse. I think if, that's going to alleviate any stress that you all might have about liability, because it really helps you. I mean, I feel great. If I would definitely hire a couple of CNA MAs, and I have a nurse, and I would definitely go into this limited nursing, because how many times do you have residents, unless you're one of those true assisted livings that are the social model, you're not going to need that, but most of us are not social models. So I think it's definitely a perk to keep people in assisted living in a safer environment and under safer care.
So a CNA, MA can take the place of a CNA?
Yes. Yes.
And then you just talked about a two-person transfer, and you're saying that's definitely a skilled
Yes.
service. So with your CNA precepted by a nurse, can you have one CNA do a two-person transfer, or do you have to have two CNAs?
We're saying two.
So you're okay.
Right, because there's no part of it that you can segregate out to a PCW. It's got to be by a skilled task. And I'll tell you, we had a recent facility who this just falls under so well. We had a recent facility, it's a small facility, and someone, a PCW, as we'll call them now, was trying to do a transfer and didn't do it well. The person fell and had a fractured femur, a compound fractured femur. Very, very bad outcome. Under these rules, we would never have permitted the PCW to do that. And so the person died. So, there's been so many occasions where, in this case, the person wasn't trained. It didn't matter their skill level. They weren't trained. They had no idea what they were doing. And so we're hoping that this can help some of these people that you're caring for that are really super frail, but by getting some skilled staff in there to provide that care when it crosses over from a PCW.
Break time.
So just an additional comment to what she's saying is, so if you have one person in your facility that does need two people to transfer, but you always have kind of two CNAs in the house, can you do a CNA and PCW together?
No.
Okay, so
No.
you're saying that if one person needs it, you always have the minimum of two CNAs always in the house.
If that person's helping, they can't be a PCW if that's a skilled task. If the person's just standing there watching, of course they're not contributing, but you're not going to have that. If they're helping, it needs to be a skilled person. So I think this is going to help facilities know for every single resident in their care, hey, I'm definitely PCW here. Okay, let's look at the next one. Mostly PCW, but for this, it's probably skilled. I think you're going to need to go through your residents, and really, I would have a sheet for every single one of my residents, and I'd go through, my existing residents, and say PCW, 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 oh, skilled. Okay, so how are we going to do this? I really think it's going to take some thought. Also, when you admit facilities, it's going to take some thought. Also, when you have changes of condition, you're going to have some thought. We're not saying that you can't do it, but it's got to be done well. It's got to be done within the framework. I'm getting nervous. You guys are firing them. That's okay. I got a bulletproof vest underneath here. I get this all the time.
Secure environment that we would allow limited nursing possibly in the future. What about in a non-secure environment? I know currently there's some residents that don't necessarily need a secure environment, but they're needing that higher level of care. They have a catheter or insulin injections.
So in a secured environment, what's interesting to me is that, because I study this a lot, we have very few problems in our, well, I wouldn't say very few. Because we do have problems in a secure environment, but mostly the problems that we see is people get out into the outdoor area and they're not detected and they fall and they lay there for a very long time. But we don't see that many care issues in secured environment. So people definitely in a secured environment are demented. That's the reason why they're there, because they'll wander out if they're not in a locked unit. So if you have people in a secured environment that required licensed, you want to do limited nursing, now you can decide, do we want to offer that? Or do we want this, you could say within your within your secured environment that we're not going to offer licensed limited nursing for this area. and that any nursing that comes in has to be through home care or hospice. You can make a decision like that internally and have that disclosed within your written agreement, so people are aware that in our secure environment, we're not going to offer limited nursing. So, but you have to stick to that limited nursing. You have to stick to your written agreement if you have that there, because the moment that you swap over, we're going to get screaming family members. So, but that's an option.
My question is in a non-secure environment.
You can have limited nursing in a non-secured, most certainly. And that's where I think we're going to see this more prevalent. Now, I know a lot of you, you ACF facilities, this isn't going to be an option for you. There's a lot of rules about ACF, what you can and can't provide, and nursing services are not, it's not under the waiver as being something you can provide. So we have to be careful with ACFs because there's rules within the waiver that permit a facility from offering nursing services. So I don't know if you all caught that in the last Assisted Living Advisory Committee meeting. We had touched upon it, and we've done some internal reach out to HCPF to ask them their feedback on that, and they responded back to us that in the waiver it says that assisted living facilities cannot provide limited nursing. So really this is going to fall primarily under your private pay facilities. Now the question is, which we haven't got to yet, I know you're thinking about it, is like if I'm an ACF and I have private pay residents, can I do limited nursing for the private paid residents? My answer is yes. So even though you're an ACF, why wouldn't we allow that? So that's something that we've had that question since the last meeting, that we need to hammer that out too within our regulations, so it's clear who you can provide those to or not if you want. Now you don't have to be limited nursing. I don't want y'all to walk away saying, Dee said I got to be limited nursing. I got to do it, I got to do it, I got to do it. I'm saying you have to do it if you're providing limited skilled nursing tasks. So, and again, it's your decision. If you want to stay on this side of the line, that's fine. If you want to venture over here, I'm just setting up the framework for you for things to consider.
More questions? Get them while you can.
Can you just clarify? I know with the CNA, MA, you have under nurse supervision. If you have CNAs in your facility, the limited nursing, do they have to be under supervision of the nurse as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, a CNA cannot work and provide skilled tasks unless they're supervised by a nurse. And that's in any setting. So we're going to carry that over to our setting. We got two people over here.
Good, I'm working offline.
Okay. Trust me, this stuff makes my brain hurt. I woke up this morning at 2 o'clock in the morning going, oh my God.
Is there going to be a designation as to if the nurse has to be an LPN or RN?
Good question. So we've had a lot of discussion internally about LPNs versus RNs in limited nursing. And so the way that the rules read is that the only nurse that can oversee CNAs is an RN. An LPN cannot do that. And also an LPN, they can't, if you read in DORA, LPNs cannot assess and evaluate. They can only report to a physician or a higher person what they're seeing. So there's a very distinct line between LPNs and RNs. So our regulations will say that RNs must be the ones that are supervising the CNAs.
So I have a question. Does the supervisory nurse need to be on site at the facility at all times if you're using the CNA? So some models haven't had like a nurse overnight. But if you have a two-person assist, would they need to be supervising him in the building?
So she's talking about like how much would that supervising nurse need to be in the facility? And the last conversation that we had, we were looking to say that they have to be accessible. So now there's going to be, we're talking about if you have a CNA and they're going to be doing limited nursing and you have a nurse, we're going to be talking about the training for that CNA and the oversight and the competency review. So that nurse is going to have to, on a regular basis, go and watch this person perform tasks to make sure they're doing it correctly. It's almost like in a nursing home. If you have a CNA doing tasks, that nurse periodically has to go and observe and making sure that they're doing it correctly. And that's a huge thing that's missing from assisted living regulations right now. We don't have that competency evaluation. And we don't have a lot of things. It makes me cry sometimes. So we don't have a lot of things. So I really think this will be very, very good for caring for the frail people that we have in assisted living. Yes, you guys are going to have to do more. You're going to provide more skilled staff. But I'm going to walk away from this and ride off into the sunset someday and be happy that we've put this into place to protect our seniors. So I know it's burdensome, but you do have choices.
Am I correct in assuming that the skilled task will kind of reflect like what's in home care? For example, bathing a resident with an open area is considered a skilled task, and kind of definition is the same.
Yes, and the question was, can she expect that the regulations in home care between skilled and unskilled be what we have in assisted living? Absolutely. We stole them. We stole them, and we wanted to be consistent. So that was our platform, which we built PCW tasks, and within the PCW tasks, it says what that personal care worker can do and what they can't. So, hallelujah, we got a line in the sand in the regulations. I'm so happy.
More questions?
You mentioned the second biggest change was administrative regulations.
So our current regulations right now, the administrator must be responsible for the daily operation of the facility. Period. That's it. You have to kind of agree with me. That's kind of lame. Okay, so we've really beefed it up. We really wanted the administrator to have his or her fingers in a number of things. And so that's including marketing materials, advertising materials. It's including being responsible for knowing the financial setup for the facility. We put a large number of things within our regulation. And I can go through those if you want to. But the one other thing that I'll say is that the licensee also has a lot of responsibility and tasks. And so the licensee could be different than the administrator, or it could be the same person. Most cases, it's not the same person. In some cases, for the small facilities, it's the same person. But we wanted the licensee to also have responsibilities within our regulations for the administrator. So if we have an administrator gone bad, we're going to say, okay, you weren't responsible for this as you were required to do. Then we're going to the licensee and say, you were responsible for making sure your administrator was doing this. What happened? There could be two deficiencies. So we wanted to beef that up because we got feedback from families and also our surveys where, well, it's not the administrator that makes decisions about marketing, it's somebody else in New York. Or maybe they're in Seattle. I don't know. Or the families don't know who the administrator is. And the administrator is hands-off. When I went to go talk to the administrator, they didn't know what was going on, but they're responsible for daily operations. So we really felt like, based upon the feedback that we got from families, that we needed to beef that up. So I don't think, in my view, that it's problematic. I think the things that we put in there, you would probably say, well, that makes sense, I already do it. It's our facilities that struggle, that don't have the framework to really guide what an administrator should be doing and be responsible for. Down the road, it's not going to happen now, but we're trying to push forward down the road. Not now, thank God. But we really want to think about having an administrator actually licensed in some sort, whether it's through DORA or another agency. We don't want any part of it because we can't afford to manage that licensee for administrators, but it's probably coming. So a lot of other states have it. We decided to tackle the regulations and put that off until next time.
Couple more questions. We're getting close to equipment time. Anything else? One more question. Let's go for the big one.
Two.
All big ones have been asked.
Oh, Bill.
Oh, good job. Oh. The
this is a limited forum with just a segment of our providers in our state. And is there a resource that these folks and other folks in our communities can reach out to ask these sorts of questions? I know attending the LR meeting is one thing, but I'm sure there's a lot of brain power that's going to leave this room and come up with a lot of different questions. How can these questions and issues be addressed? Is there a resource?
Sure. So the question was about resources and being able to ask questions. So what I'll tell you, if we've already gone through a section of the regulations like a few months ago, and we've already got consensus from our committee members, and if you have a question about those regs, call me. And I can answer, number one, what the regulation says and how we interpret it, how we're going to look for it when we're in survey. My number is 303-692-2893. You can call me. Now, if we're getting ready to talk about something in the Assisted Living Advisory Committee meetings and you have a comment, the perfect place to do that is come to the meeting or listen to the meeting, get your comment. You can email me your question. I could give it to our department staff to make sure that we ask it for you on your behalf. That's another way. Now, as Bill has mentioned, I don't know if any of you have listened in lately, there's a lot of conversations that take place, and it's really hard when you're listening on the phone to hear everybody. If you really want to hear what's happening, you really need to show up in person, because then you get the gist of the conversations, because it's like a tennis game. And it's just a constant volley. I can hardly keep up. I'm trying to take notes. I'm trying to make sections in the regs to make sure that we talk about it internally. It's a very lively discussion at sometimes. And sometimes our moderator, Lorraine Dixon-Jones, has to shut us down because we've already talked about that. Stop. We need to keep on schedule. So she's really direct with us and with our committee about we're off topic. So please keep up, because sometimes people will email me something and they have a concern about it, but we've already went over it 4 meetings ago. I can't go backwards, and so that ship sailed, and I can't go back 4 months ago and bring your concern because we've already moved forward. So I know the time commitment that it takes to attend and listen into these meetings, it's a lot, but we're almost there. So if you can really hang in there, we've got a few more. Licensed limited nursing is our very, very big hot topic. We're going to go to environment. We're going to go to infection control. We're going to do loose ends. We have a couple meetings for loose ends, back to definitions, and then we should be done. So it's going to be great when we get these done. But I just want to encourage you to reach out. Don't sit at your facility and stew and moan and groan. You have a platform to raise concerns. Use it. And if you have questions, just email me or call me, and I'm sure to answer them. I get those calls every day.
And I want to piggyback on that a little bit too, is that you'll find the most recent version of the regs that's been approved on our website, as well as the calendar that we actually get for the conference. So if we go there, you can pick up on what's coming up. You can focus in on those ones that are important to you, and not be as important. And as he mentioned, President Bill is one of the members of the stakeholder group that's putting these rules and regs together. If you've got questions, call him, say his stuff. There's lots of resources for you. And if you've got questions, ask. Because when this goes to the medical board and they say it's all good, that's what we get to play with.
So I'm going to give you my email address so that if you have a question that you'd like me to present to the ACA committee. It's BBOLES at ashleycares.com. Yes, Ashley, ASHLEY, cares.com. And I promise I will present every single question. Don't try. If not, I will pass them on to
And I'll just say, this is an exciting time. We're really moving the assisted living regulations into our current date, and we're also projecting what could happen in the future. We've done a lot of research, so I'm really happy that we're moving forward, with the regulations, and I'll just say one last thing. When we get to the last section of the regulation talks about environment, talks about rooms, and so forth. We've already touched upon that with conversations about the Facility Guidelines Institute. We've already had conversations about that, which we're incorporating into our regs. But one of the things that we're also looking to do, and this is coming up, and it shouldn't be that problematic, is that how do assisted livings manage hazardous waste? So how do we, what do we do with batteries? What do we do with someone that has C. diff and we've just cleaned their room, and what do we do with that? Assisted livings have been in the gray and the dark in the prehistoric age about hazardous waste, whether it's medication disposal. We've had a lot of conversations with our folks that work over in hazardous waste, and we don't have anything in regulations that guide you on what to do with it. So we're hoping to put some information into our regulations that tell you what to do with it. Because it really, I think this is a really important thing that we can tackle to help our environment. Because right now we still have people putting meds down the toilet. We still have people like putting soiled items, incontinence products and that in the regular landfills when they shouldn't be. So, and again, our regulations haven't addressed it, but we want to give you framework that will address it from where we are today and moving forward. So I'm pretty excited about that, because I keep thinking, this is probably why I was awake last night, because I was thinking there's 677 of you, and if you guys are like, if you have like 5 people in each facility that have incontinence care, where's that going? And what about meds? And I'm like, oh, what about batteries? It's like, we're destroying our environment. We can do this better. And so I think it's going to be a good thing, and I don't think it'll be too problematic. Okay.
All right, let's give Dee a nice